Welcome, everyone, to Frontline Dispatches on Organizing Upgrade, a show dedicated to spotlighting the most urgent left organizing and activism happening in the country and beyond racial and economic justice, and much more. And stay tuned for future episodes on Frontline Dispatches every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern. That's 6 p.m. Central and 4 p.m. Pacific. My name is Jennifer, and I'm today's host. If you're watching on Facebook or YouTube, please leave comments in the chat. We'll be monitoring those as the show goes on. And if you haven't yet, give Organizing Upgrade a like and subscribe to this channel. And finally, to stay up to speed with all the amazing content coming out of Organizing Upgrade, sign up at our website, organizingupgrade.com, to hear about upcoming events, videos, articles about left strategies for organizing. Okay, let's get into it. Today, my guest is, as I endearly call her, Mama Jamala Rogers, coming to you from Organization for Black Struggle in Missouri. Jamala is an organizer, trainer, and strategist with over decades of organizing experience. Welcome, Mama Jamala.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being with
I'm
me.
really ready for a very animated discussion around this issue. So, yeah.
Well, I'm super excited. Yes, let's talk about, the main issue that we've heard about lately, the latest court victory on the ballot initiative about Medicaid expansion. We know how important Medicaid expansion was and is for Black Missourians. So would you describe the Medicaid expansion victory for Black Missourians?
So, just briefly, this and probably some of your organizing audience will know that a ballot initiative is not some kind of like quick deal where you just get it on the ballot. It's like 3 or 4 years in the making, sometimes longer than that. So probably 2017, 2018, we in the movement and talked about like how we were going to again talk about Medicaid expansion. It had been tried once, I think, through the legislature and failed miserably. And so, the thing that's been left for organizers to do is to use the ballot initiative, because that way you have direct contact with your base and constituencies rather than the knucklehead legislators who don't seem to be in touch with anything. So we started looking at, first of all, the messaging, not the messaging, the language for the ballot. So that took some time to like work through. And then we did the messaging and the signature collection. And for us in the Organization for Black Struggle, our base is mainly African American. So we did North St. Louis and also North County, which is mainly Black folks. And we also, began to talk about, as we were getting signatures, the importance of healthcare in our communities and really just using expansion of Medicaid to bring that issue front and center to our communities, because we have lots of mental health issues. We have lots of, physical health issues. And so us making that conversation, pretty central to this ballot initiative was important to us as an organization. So we collected the signatures, thousands of signatures that were collected to get that on the November ballot for 2020. And we thought it was important for the ballot to go in November because that was going to be what? Election, and we could use all the other issues, including the presidential election, to really get people out to the polls. And your governor decided that no, that wasn't going to happen. And so before we knew it, he had put the ballot initiative on the August ballot. And we said, okay, you want to play that? We can do that too. So we're ready. And so we were, and we passed it. But for us, having the conversation in our communities, particularly in the throes of COVID-19, was crucial. And so we had no problem with getting the signatures and convincing people how important Medicaid expansion was, but also in the context of a health crises for our community, that this was just like a small chip in terms of trying to move the needle. So it was a very energizing kind of campaign. And then when we won, we were totally like, outdone. And then here comes the Republican dominated legislature saying, no, it's not going to happen. We're not going to do it. And we're like, okay, come on, y'all. This is something that the majority of the state, rural, urban, all said that they want this. Now, how are you up there going to tell us that we can't have it? And so, we, there was a challenge. There were three plaintiffs that all had particular um, uh, medical conditions that were going to be relying on Medicaid expansion. Now, none of them, to my knowledge, if I'm trying to remember, were African Americans, but certainly we could have found a crop of them that would benefit directly from Medicaid expansion being passed. So luckily, and I say luck because nothing in terms of the court's decision necessarily goes our way. But in this case, the Missouri Supreme Court upheld the fact that that was a ballot initiative that the state needs to be implementing. And so it just seems crazy, Jennifer, that you would have the governor and other folks there trying to put a damper on that when it's going to save lives, it's going to create jobs. I mean, there's no negative to it hardly, and then why would you be trying to put a damper on that except that you can? So, like I said, it was luck on our part, even though the legal basis for it was sound. Who knows? I mean, we've had sound legal basis before in the courts and we didn't win. So, so now we're proceeding ahead with Medicaid expansion. And for us being in a predominantly Black community and also, battling with all of the health disparities as it relates to COVID, we just continue to have the conversation about what it means for even this small reform. And I'm saying small because it's not really even going to put a damper on what the healthcare crisis is in our communities.
Yeah, I think you bring up a good point in regards to the healthcare crisis in the Black community, especially in St. Louis. Can you tell us a little bit about that messaging component that you were talking about when, you were trying to get voters to come out during the time of COVID to vote for this ballot initiative? What were some stories that you were hearing on the doors and how that impacted people voting for it?
Well, there were many stories. It seemed like for us, the reason that Medicaid resonated with people because they've heard about Medicaid and who gets it and what benefits it is, and then to have it expanded to families, mainly children for real, families who normally would not be included just based on the formula for who's in poverty. But as you know, Jennifer, what they call poverty, it just really needs to be redefined because even when we talk about a livable wage and we look at the $15 an hour, you still really are not out of poverty. It's really part of the education about the whole piece. And so for a lot of folks who don't have the kind of jobs where healthcare was provided, you're really on your own. And so for a number of people, there were folks that were uninsured or underinsured, and maybe they got a good deal under the American, the Obamacare. But for a lot of people, either they or their family members or somebody they knew had no insurance. And so being able to cover, 230,000 more Missourians made just good sense because the money's already there. The federal dollars are already there. And most people didn't know that because the other narrative was like, this is going to cost us money. And we're like, no. And in many cases, a lot of the federal dollars that are supposed to come our way, and when I say our, I mean African Americans, based on specific kinds of health issues, we don't get. I mean, but that whole trickle down thing is a bunch of BS. But when you look at the health and well being of our communities, it really does start with personal health first. And we know most of our folks, are dealing with issues of diabetes, issues of high blood pressure, heart disease, and then on top of that, there's this whole drug epidemic in terms of fentanyl and opioid stuff that actually is coming into our community, and we actually had folks die in our catchment area, or OD. So for us, health is a big issue.
No, I definitely hear you, Mama Jamala. And going back to your point about, poverty, wages, and what it means to, really have a livable wage. I know OBS, along with partners, were successful in raising the minimum wage and also repealing right to work in Missouri. How has that helped build a Black voting bloc in St. Louis?
So it's helped build a black voting block because one of the things you do is to start with an agenda, and therefore the agenda gets to be presented to anybody. It's not, and that takes away the subjective and personal uh, piece about who you want to support. Oh, I like her, or no, I can't stand him. No, 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 no. What is their stand on these issues here? What are they going to do about health disparities? What are they going to do about police accountability? What are they going to do about jobs and job creation? So when you have that kind of objective um, political agenda that's coming from people, when you talk about when they say here's what I'd like to see or here's what I need, so you have an organic agenda that people then say, yeah, that's what we need. So then you present it to these folks who are running for office, and legislators who are looking at what legislative agenda they'll have, and you say, well, here's what we need to have. And so what we've been doing over the years is just building on uh, those issues and connecting them when necessary, but also, the whole question of layer them too. So, for example, when we talk about raising the minimum wage, that we were able to do, first of all, locally, and then second of all, through the state, you talk about quality of life, and you keep talking about here's an agenda that's going to get our families what they need, and here's why we need to support that and support people who are going to make that happen for us and hold them accountable when they say yes. Of course I support all of that. Yeah, just get me in there and we'll see what happens. No, 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 no. This is not only an agenda to get you in, but it's also an agenda to keep you accountable to the people. And so we just keep building on there, and in for OBS, our home ward is the 22nd ward, and so we've done a lot of base building work there. And so basically, people rely on us to say, here's the issues, here's why they need to be supported, and here's why you need to get you and your neighbors out to vote for this. So you start to see this trend, Jennifer, of how people are voting, and they're voting based on that political agenda. And that's been very encouraging to see, because a lot of times, like I said, people want to say, I don't like that dress she wore that day, and so I ain't vote for her. No, we're going to get more sophisticated than that. We're going to look at an agenda that affects and creates a bigger picture of the health and well-being of a community, and ours is in pretty bad shape. So we don't have the luxury of that kind of you know um, petty stuff, and petty bickering about who didn't do what, and who said something to my uncle back in 2020. So I mean 2002. So I think we're getting people to the point where their expectations are greater for who's running, and they're looking for very specific things. And so as we've been tracking this from um, the minimum wage through the ballot initiative, um, what was the other one we just did? Geez, it seems like we've been doing ballot initiatives every couple of
Yeah.
years, but 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 the good thing about it is, like, the same people are saying, "Oh, we got another one coming. What is that about?" And so you actually have them anticipating. Here's another issue that's going to affect our community. Here's why you need to be involved. And so you start to see, um, even for Medicaid expansion, there was strong turnout in both KC and St. Louis, because the Black community very clearly understood what was at stake for them. So our numbers were really high overall. I think it was 53% of the voters across the state, voted for Medicaid expansion, but they were much higher in St. Louis and Kansas City, and even within certain communities in St. Louis, they were super high because of the work that groups like the Organization for Black Struggle had done. So we were very proud of the work and proud of the partners that helped us with this work. The the overall coalition was huge. It was 300 plus organization agencies that were a part of really trying to make the expansion of Medicaid happen. Some of them were people that we normally wouldn't be partnering with. And so that's the thing about learning how to be in coalition with people and struggling and agitating, so that you make sure you get your voice heard and you get what your constituents need. And so that also is a lesson in and of itself. That's probably another whole day of talking about the coalition that puts these things together. But I would say that, when people win, when our people win, that is, it's not only a political victory, it's a psychological victory. And so we understand that because in the 22nd Ward, there's a lot of despair and hopelessness. And so whenever we win, we win and we make it a big deal. Y'all won this, it's because of y'all. You did this, and making sure that they understand their own power to make things happen for them and their families.
Mama Jama, that was beautiful. If you're just joining us, I'm talking with Jamala Rogers, organizer and strategist with Organization for Black Struggle. Mama Jamala, there was a lot of gems in that piece. I think one of the things about Principal Struggle as a proud member of Organization for Black Struggle is something that I carry with me in every space that I go. And talking about the base building and the victory that, the 22nd Ward was able to bring in all these campaigns. There's another victory. There's the victory of electing the first Black woman mayor. I was about to say president. Ooh, maybe I'm speaking that into existence.
Put it out there in the universe.
Put it out there in the universe. You already know it. But the first Black mayor in St. Louis, and just really would love to shed some light on some other lessons that you learned through that victory about the voting block.
So I think when we talk about a voting block, and you begin to have people look for folks who fit or who are going to carry out that agenda, and for us, Tishaura Jones was an easy sell, because even though she's fairly young, at least for me, she's fairly young to me. I've known her since she was a kid. She's been involved politically for all of her adult life. And so it's no mystery about where she stands on things. And it's no mystery about what she's willing to do to advance a political agenda for the people. And so when we looked at her as a state legislator, we saw what she did. When we look at her as a city treasurer, and how she made sure, I mean, Tishaura Jones was doing things and saying things that really probably was unprecedented. She was one of the first city offices to give her staff a livable wage. They were making $15 an hour when nobody else's department was. So then it's not like she's running for office. It's like, these are her values. So it would be very easy then to say, here's what we want in terms of, better jobs and this, because we already know that's where she is. She's making sure her own staff has that. So it's not like, I wonder if she would. No, she's done it. And so when we started to put together, this agenda about, several areas, like police accountability was a big one, courts, closing down the workhouses. Everybody know that she had been talking about that before she even started running for mayor. So here you have somebody that's already in tune with a political agenda. So it was an easy sell. The big thing, I think, was just getting people out. But you also had these other strands from victories about, even the circuit attorney's race, because again, a political agenda. What are you going to do about, A, B, and C? Oh, that's something that you're going to do. That's something that Kim Gardner has been doing. And so she's been under severe attack, death threats, the whole nine, because she's trying to carry out a people's agenda. But even before Kim Gardner, we had the privilege of putting Wesley Bell on the county side. So we've been rolling through this region with these kinds of wins. What based on what? Based on a political agenda that's not rooted in, oh, that's what she likes, and that's my favorite candidate. Here's what's going to move us as a city, as a community, as families that have been struggling. And so these people have made a commitment to carry out these agendas. Sometimes they interlock with each other, interface with each other, where they can support one another. And I'm talking about the candidates that are in a political office. And then sometimes, they're forging, ahead with what they know they have the authority to do. So it's been almost fun watching how this is transpiring, because we getting these wins, but we're also getting the attention of the right wingers, who then are saying, aha, no, we're going to make it more difficult for you, and here's what we're going to do. And almost from the very beginning, they had begun putting roadblocks in the circuit attorney's way, and taking power that all the other prosecutors used to have. But now all of a sudden, she can't do this, she can't do this, she needs the state AG to do this. So we're like, no, 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 we're not going for that. We didn't come this far putting these folks in office with the power that we know they have, for you to then start literally putting handcuffs on them. And so we've seen some of that even with Mayor Jones, moving her agenda, especially around the stimulus money, because her thing, basically, she came to the community and said, what do you all want me to do with your money? that's really, and that's exactly how we would have framed it. Mayor, what are you going to do with our money? Here's what we want you to do with our money. And so in the 22nd ward, we actually had meetings to say, the mayor's asking us, let's give her some feedback, let's give her some concrete things. And people were very, very concrete and very realistic about what they wanted to see with that money. And we had a similar thing, Jennifer, when we were talking about reimagining public safety, because we were like, before people started talking about defunding the police, we had already done a campaign about reimagining public safety, where people began to see, wait a minute, we're spending 2/3 of the city budget on arrest and incarceration. What? And so just the education piece has been so powerful. And again, when we did those across the city, we said, what would you like to see if you got a couple of $1 million from all of this money that's being spent on arrest and incarceration? What would you do? And basically, we saw an alignment of that when we asked about the stimulus money. People wanted health clinics, accessible health clinics. They wanted recreation for the young people, and they wanted recreation even for families and senior citizens. So they had a very good view about what they thought should be happening. And we were able to present that to the mayor. She had a webinar, and we say, here's what the 22nd ward folks said they want. And so now the stimulus money is literally being held up. So we're finding ways to sort of break through that, and making sure that, we shake loose that money, that is not being locked in some kind of power struggle between folks, but that is really needed, particularly when this rent stuff, the moratorium is lifted. Like, what is going to happen as we move into the fall and winter months for people? Because we still have a lot of damage that was there even before COVID, and now COVID has, created and exacerbated a lot of those existing issues. So if you have, 3 or 4 of the key players working together, you have the comptroller working with the mayor, with the prosecuting attorney, with the folks who are making decisions in the lives of Black folks, then really that's a good part of the battle. And people get a chance to see, like, I put them in there and they're doing what I told them to do. So when the mayor came out to our national night out for safety and liberation, they like, yeah, I want to be there. I want to tell her, I want to say thank you to her for carrying out what we sent her to do. Because they could see that happening from day one. And she said, day one, this is what I'm going to do. And she's basically been doing that.
Oh, Mama Jamala, that's great. I think definitely Night Out for Safety and Liberation was one of my first events that I was able to participate with OBS as a member, and was super excited to take part of that. Can you talk a little bit about what Night Out for Safety and Liberation is about?
So this is very interesting what happened, and I can't say that it was because that in 2013 the Ella Baker Center for Human Rights started doing these national nights out, and it coincidentally, or maybe not, it was on the same night as the traditional night out for safety it was no just called Night Out, and those were like mainly the homeowners who were coming together to network, and the police were there and all of that. And so a lot of the folks we know weren't going out to those things, but surely we needed to have time, space, and place where people who live in the same neighborhoods could come together and meet each other and get to know each other. And so in 2013, Ella Baker Center said, we're shifting this narrative to what about Night Out for Safety and Liberation, where people get a chance to talk about what public safety is. And this year it was like, safety without prison, police, and punishment. Because that's like resonates with what we've been talking and saying for the last 5 years. So we came out, and because COVID is big, we definitely said part of our safety as a community is getting education about the pandemic and having enough information to make decisions about whether or not you want the vaccine. And I'm happy to say that we vaccinated a number of folks at the National Night Out, because again, that's a component of public safety. And so we're all in this together for real. And so if you got somebody running around there with COVID, that's putting the whole neighborhood at risk. And so we had a lot of conversation about that, and you know. Just bringing the community together. And what we're doing is reclaiming one of the parks in the 22nd Ward, Barrett Brothers Park, which is a place for a lot of violence and homicides. And we're like, no, this park belongs to everybody. And we made them cut the grass and, all this stuff, really clean it up nice like they would do if it was on the south side. And we intend to make sure it stays that way, and that it's not going to be a place where drug dealers are hanging out and keeping the kids from playing. And so we just made a commitment with people there. It's like, nah, this looks nice, and we're gonna keep it nice, and we're gonna keep it. This is gonna be our part. So, because I think when you were there, we actually shut down Ridge and Rowan to do it and had it in the street. We just claimed the street, and this time we're claiming a park. And so I think some people were reluctant to come based on the history of that park, but I think the word went out like, oh man, they had a lot of stuff going there, and they didn't have any incidents, and we didn't. We didn't have not one crossword. We had a children's village, which had lots of activities, and lots of people came together for the kids. They were doing making buttons with political sayings on them. They had a bounce house. They had a cityscape where they got to paint what they thought safety was, and so they had a ball. But yeah, so really just bringing communities together and showing how we can create our own safe spaces. We don't need the police there. We didn't have the police there. The only police that were there came with the mayor as part of her security force. But we didn't need it. We had our own security force. So
that's right.
Yeah. So that I think that's people have to see it in motion to believe that it can happen. That people can really do this without like somebody else doing it. But yeah, so we're making believers out of them, and we actually drawing more of them in there to help put on these kind of events, because we could have more of it if people wanted to do more of it, and that they strip themselves of the fear, and the fear goes away when the more that they do stuff and see that there's no negative implications, that it's actually helping and growing the community.
That's right, Mama Jamala. Definitely taking that fear away, building accountability for our communities by voting. To our audience, if you joined this video, stay up to speed with all our amazing content coming out of Organizing Upgrade. Sign up at our website to hear about upcoming events, videos, articles about left strategy for organizers. Thank you to all who have joined us today. Thank you for your brilliant words and work, Mama Jamala Rogers. And thank you to the production team at Organizing Upgrade. Please join us next week, same day, Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Central, and 4 p.m. Pacific. Have a good night, y'all.